Welcome to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Andrew Bartolotta. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making an impact, empowering the good in our community and around the globe. Brittany Plumeri is not just a best-selling children's book author, but also an elementary school teacher and a mom. Her mission goes beyond storytelling. It's all about teaching empathy and fun and engaging ways and bringing families together through reading. Brittany runs her own publishing company, Once Upon a Page Press, where she is able to take her passion for promoting kindness, self-esteem, and good manners in young readers and share it with the world. So let's dive right into the heart of her work, her inspiration, and how she's making a difference in the lives of children. Brittany, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So what inspired you to become an author?
Well, as you had mentioned, I am an elementary school teacher, and it was actually my students. So I am a mom of three. I have a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 2-month-old. But my first story ever was inspired by my students in the classroom. And it was at a time where kindness was lacking. And the books that I were finding just wouldn't resonate because sometimes they just don't hit home every single time. And I needed more of a shoe on the other foot instead of just being at the end, everything's tied up in a perfect bow. So that was my inspiration for my first story. And I just dove in. It took about 2 years for that story to come to life after the rhyming coach and the mentors and everything. But they were my first inspiration. Now I have a toddler series that was totally inspired by my own little toddler at home. He is now 5. But, those mine monsters, those stages of always screaming mine and the whines. And now I have a new one coming out September 12th for the picky eaters. So all of those were inspired by the children around me.
I love that you take an applicable approach of like, I have these stories around me. I have these children that are immersed in some problem solving, but also you seeing a need for them to be able to resonate with a book that will help them really understand maybe the process of how to be more mindful or more empathetic or kindness, or even now you said one coming out about picky eating. That's so great. What does it mean by your books being interactive?
So it's literally a conversation. They're all prompts in the story as well. So they go through a actual situation. I call it a test because it's the Mind Monsters Lab. So they're going through a situation or a test where it's a regular everyday thing. So for Mind Monster, the first little monster has one last cookie on the table. So immediately he starts running for that last cookie because he sees his dad going to eat it and he's going, mine, 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 mine. So the kids are prompted to say, what do we tell the monster? Stop. And then they do a cute little interactive. They have to jump up and down. They have to turn around and they have to say, it's fine, fine, fine. And then you'll ask the child, oh, but what can that monster say to get that cookie instead of mine? What's that kind word that we're thinking of? And then they'll respond, usually, hopefully, with please. And then you'll say, can I please have the cookie? So it's interactive in a way of them actually responding to the one reading to them.
So talk more about this Monster Manners Lab series, the books, sort of the characters behind it, and how this series, like, does everyone need to read it in a sequential order? Is it really just lessons throughout and you see familiar characters? Talk about this Monster Manners Lab series.
Oh my gosh, I would love to. Okay, so each book has a different scientist, and each scientist is in charge of that kind of monster. So we have the mine monsters who are constantly shouting out mine, and each little monster is a different child going through a different situation. So we have the cookie, we have the sharing the blanket, we have sharing toys with siblings. So those are the 3 situations in the mine monster book. In the next book, you meet a different scientist. Her name is Evie, and each book has a different fun way of jumping, of moving, of clapping, because as you said that you're also a dad. Toddlers really cannot sit still. So
They
getting
cannot.
them to sit still for these stories was like pulling teeth. So making them be able to have these fun movements during it has been great for them and great for me because they're listening to a story instead of just being like, okay, gotta go, and like running away. So the movements included also help it resonate with them. So they're practicing constantly. So then the second book is The Whiny Werewolf, and that's all about the whines. I don't know about you, but my toddler was constantly going, I want
Preach, preach it.
it. So I was like, oh my gosh, you're such a whiny werewolf. And then I was like, oh, there you go, book number 2. So now we have book number 2. And again, it's the 3 situations of ways that they would whine. I don't want to go to bed. I want a snack. Teacher, he took my toy. So it's all like those 3 scenarios. And each little monster is a different child that you'll see. It's very diverse. So in that one, it's really fun because instead of them with the motion of whining, they're going to howl. So, stop, don't whine, let's howl instead. And they'll go, howl. And my 2-year-old walks around all day now and just goes, howl. And I'm like, good job, honey, good job. And then my third book, the picky eating book, it's not so much telling kids what they need to eat. It's getting them to be able to try it and then give a thumbs up or a thumbs down if they like it or if they didn't like it. So they still have their opinion. So it's not like you're taking everything away from them, but it's encouraging more of, oh my gosh, this is so new. Let's give it a try. And then they do the little interactions. And then at the end, they actually are asked an opinion. Give a thumbs up if it was for your belly, give a thumbs down if it wasn't. And then they'll still be able to say, oh, I liked it. Oh, I didn't. But at least they tried the food.
Yeah, exactly. And I love this multi-sensory approach to your books because, like you said, and as a father of 3 under 3, I know what it's like to try and even read a story to our children, and they are looking for how their body can like react to me reading the story. And so for you to be able to bring in sight and sound and jumping and movement, like that is a great way for them to not only resonate with the book and what you're telling them and teaching them, but also for them to feel like they're part of it and remember it. Because a lot of the time, my children are repeating the sounds that they've heard or the words that they've heard, whether good or bad. And so to be able to have such a great books, a series for them to read and then react to while they're reading them with howling and thumbs up and thumbs down and being able to jump and move. Like that's a great way for them to not only get excited about reading, but also learn as they go. And I have to think that a lot of this has come from being such a great elementary school teacher. How has that influenced your writing and the way that you bring this approach to your books?
Oh, thank you so much. You know what? You're instilled, especially when you go to college, of ways to think like children and be able to make lessons that fit kids so it's resonating instead of just being something that, like you said, it's textbook. It's not just reading in the textbook. It's trying to come up with ways that it actually sticks with them, especially now in a world where it's, iPads and TVs. It's a lot to keep up with. I feel like I'm also like an actor in front of the classroom, like, we're going to do this today, and like moving and dancing. So when I started having to do more of being so dramatic in the classroom, I was like, okay, like it's going to be the same exact thing through my books. It's really hard to get them to, like we've been saying, to just sit there and read, even though it's so good for them. It's just, their life is a constant movement now.
Mhm.
So being able to take all that I've learned with teaching, it's just kind of dissecting what would work for them and watching my own child and being able to experience him in his goods and his bads and his, great days. But being able to watch him and see what resonated with him was the best way that I was able to take what I wanted him to get from the book and without even really realizing that he's learning something. So that was like the most important part for me. Like I didn't want it to be like, you need to learn how to use your manners. It was more of a, oh, you want to read this book about a monster? Can you help him? And then he was like, oh yeah. And I was like, okay, good. And then, my kids are always like, please, thank you. And it's great because they didn't realize that they were learning how to do it. They just know that it was nice to do.
I love that because you are taking this approach not only as a parent but as a teacher to be empathetic to their emotions and their reactions. And so many of us, and I'm learning and failing and kind of succeeding on a maybe daily basis at being a parent, but it's a struggle. And so, like you said, kids are in constant movement or expecting constant movement. And it is an easy option to stick an iPad in front of them and sort of just walk away and say they'll learn somehow. I watch TV growing up or whatever, but it's like that's not the way. And kids really need parents that are present, and that takes a lot of energy out. And I know that, parents have to work and such, but I think the approach that you're doing is a lot of work, but it's also very rewarding to be able to see them understand and want to sit down and read, knowing that there is some really great lessons learned, but also in a fun environment. What are some strategies that you use in your classroom to foster a love for reading and learning? Maybe there's some educators watching or listening to this interview. What is some inspiration you can provide them on how they can better create this environment for reading and learning?
I just want to reiterate, we are an iPad household too. So
Oh,
like
so yeah, okay, good.
it's not like we don't use them. No, 100%, moms, dads, everybody needs a break.
You
So
have to.
um, but yes, no, the best piece of advice I can give anybody is don't force reading. Don't force it. Don't make it a chore. Don't make it you didn't do this. Now you can't do this. Do not do that, because then it's just going to be something that they look at like, I have to do this. That's not how to do it. The best approach, and my son was this way, it was kind of like once he started to realize, because, he's 5 now, he's going into kindergarten. Once he started to realize, oh, this was like, I have to do this. It was kind of like, no, I want to do it on my time. So what we started doing was we took him to Barnes and Noble, and we were like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you. You get to start reading. So let's go through. You get to pick out 2 books today. What kind of books do you want? And that was just a reward. Now it was like, oh, I get to do this. I get to go look through. I get to pick out 2 books. You want to make it so it's an actual excitement, because books are exciting. They're the background of most of these movies. Harry Potter, book, but that one was like millions. You know what I mean? Twilight, books. All of these things that they love watching are actually in books. They just need to know that it's there. So once they kind of pick up that, oh, it's exciting, oh, it's fun, I want to do it too. Make it more of a, we get to read together. Do you want to come lay with mommy and we can go and, enjoy our time alone and read a book, especially with multiple kids. Like you said, you're a dad of 3, and it is. And I know, especially as a working mom trying to do this, I know how exhausting it is. But looking back on my childhood, those are the moments like I remember the most, is when my mom would kind of take me under her wing and it would just be me and her alone. And, so it's like, you still want to make these moments. So you might as well do it in bed, snuggling with a book.
That's well said, and I agree. I think I always joke with my friends and family. My sister-in-law's a great avid reader, and I always joke the last book I read was Judy Blume's Tale of a Fourth Grade Nothing, because I was so forced to read when I was very young that like I don't read. But that's really not the case. I mean, in the work that I'm in, I'm reading every day. I'm researching, but it's just really kind of a joke. But when you talk about it being forced, it does make this approach where you feel this barrier of like, well, if I have to do it, I'm not going to do it. And so fostering this environment of inclusion for them to feel like they can choose their own book and their stories and what resonates to them makes them an avid reader. And that's really great advice there. And we did talk about technology. How do you incorporate technology into your teaching methods? And how does it enhance your children's learning experiences? Like, how do you balance technology as well as some of the more traditional methods of teaching? What are some advice or maybe some tips there?
I love it. Like, don't steer away from it just because it is a screen. It is amazing. There's so many programs. And I just refound Hooked on Phonics. They now have an online thing. There are so many. Most of the schools use Raz Kids, which is a reading device, because, like I said, I take my son to Barnes and Noble, but maybe not everybody has a Barnes and Noble by them, or, so there's so many resources, especially free ones that are in apps, that are on websites, that they're able to do and play. And like we said, this is it's the world now. They love to be on this. I mean, I love to be on it. I'm sure you love to be on it, So there's games where they're constantly learning. And, so if you find the right games and the right tools, then it's easier for them to be able to learn without realizing they're learning. So currently I was teaching fourth grade. So with them, we would do a lot of research. This opened up a whole new world. So they weren't just sitting there doing nothing. It was a lot of research and Google and learning how to find things. Like you said, most of your reading is research, and that's going to be the rest of their lives. They're going to have to go through books and through newspapers, but everything is available online. That's also, available in libraries. So it works out if you use it the right way. Don't abuse it because it can give headaches, but if you use it the right way and you prompt to show them how to utilize it to get better, then it's worth it. It's great.
What are maybe some of your top, obviously your book series is number one and a very great tool and resource for families, but you also have a YouTube series that I saw with your son on how to like create these really fun like recipes. So talk a little bit about that and maybe some of the different resources or applicable like tips and like tools that you've created for the community at large to really benefit from, or maybe some that you love using as well.
So that's so funny that you bring up how the snack monster. So
Yeah.
like I said, my son was a picky eater, and he was very, very into watching kids do things on YouTube, and I couldn't get him to eat certain things. And I was like, you know what, bud? Why don't we make a snack show? And he was like, what? Like your very own YouTube, like I'll post it. And it's so funny that you bring that up. But yeah, so that snack show was based on Disney characters or characters that he was into at the time. And we would make snacks and he would be trying new foods. But he did it because we did it together on the show. And at the end, I always made him try it. So
That's
that was like kind of like
brilliant.
how we started with that.
Yeah.
Um, so, so yeah, so if you want to check those out, those are really fun. Just like some snacks that I was trying to introduce to him. Um, but yes, no, in general, on my site, I have all of my free resources with, coloring pages and lesson plans for teachers and things like that. But my go-to is I always end up, if there's something that I want to have and I can't, teachers pay teachers. It is like a source that is just so great. That is thousands of teachers spend hours of their time putting together stuff. So if there's a lesson that you really were looking for sure head there, especially if you're a parent. I feel like not many parents know about that. So this is
No,
me
I've
telling
heard of
you.
teachers pay teachers, but I've never thought as a parent that I could utilize that service and support
Absolutely can.
teachers.
Absolutely can.
Perfect.
And has like homeschooling stuff on it and like anything. Like if if your teacher's like, oh, your child's struggling with the sound this, if you type that sound into Teachers Pay Teachers, boom, there's lesson plans throughout the whole entire thing. So that is something that I love. YouTube I go to, especially if I'm looking for a story and I can't find it for the holidays. I always have that playing in the background. But yeah, I mean, you guys know your kids. So anything that you think would be fun. So in my house, we have a rule. You have to try it 3 times in order to tell me if you really like it or you don't really like it. And it's become such a hit that both my 5-year-old and 2-year-old actually now eat sushi. Okay. Because we did the try 3. And they were like, oh, actually, I do like it. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, now mommy has to order 2 more rolls. So,
Yeah,
but yeah.
exactly. That's a great method of being able to have your children explore new things and a great just lesson for let's try it 3 times and see if they like it or not. And yes, now you have to order 2 more sushi rolls. You are a self-publisher. Talk about some of the challenges, but also rewards of being a self-publishing author, and then talk about Once Upon a Page Press and the mission behind it.
So, I'm actually agented now too. So now I'm also veering into the traditional publishing world. But so
Awesome.
for right now, for the self-publishing, it was hard for me for this series, especially when you take both sides with traditional publishing, you just kind of write the manuscript and you give it. And then whatever they do with it, they do with it. They could change the characters, they could be whatever they want. But with self-publishing, it's like your book baby. It's you get to choose the illustrations, you get to walk through it, you get to have all these things, but there's definitely challenges because of you are your own marketer, you're your own publicist, you're your own, everything about you is just you. So traditional publishing pays off in a sense of they handle most of that. But with self-publishing, it's kind of everything is on you. But I couldn't let the series go. Like this was the one that I was like, I have such a vision for it. This needs to stay in mine. Like everything about this needs to be with me. So for this series specifically, and the Merslings that it's going to be for older kids that we start in January, those are staying with me for good, for life. But my other ones are with my agent and are currently starting to get pitched to traditional publishing houses. But if you are out there and there is a story in you and you want to do this, you absolutely can do this. You absolutely can. I say it all the time. If it's inside of you, there's a lesson that needs to be learned. And it doesn't matter if it was written 700 times, it wasn't written by you. So you have a different way of saying it. And if you ever have any questions, reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer.
Great advice. Brittany, where can people reach out to you? Where can they go to purchase your books? Where can they follow you and support your efforts?
You can go to www.brittanyplumeri.com. That is my website where you can reach out to me right on the site and I will get back to you. On there also are the links to all of my books. I have workbooks too. I even have a book that walks kids through how to write their own book. So it's like a workbook. Those are all on there. But if not, you can find me on Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble, any of the online sites. You just search my name and I will be right there. And on Instagram, I am at by Brittany Plumeri.
Awesome. Well, Brittany Plumeri, thank you so much for not only being an incredible teacher, mom, but also children's book author and teaching empathy and fun and engaging ways, bringing families together. Thank you so much for powering the good in our community and beyond. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me and all your kind words.